Hi, and welcome to Luke Boo PhD. I'm a psychologist here in Maroubra, Sydney, Australia, and I wanted to talk to you about building a fear mountain. Now, a fear mountain is one of the most potent tools you can use to overcome fear, and a particular type of fear. It's the overwhelming fear, the fear of, well, I'll never get around to doing that, or that is just so stress-inducing, that is so anxiety-provoking. It's overwhelming, it's way too much for me. And so with that particular type of fear, what we can do is break that fear down into manageable steps. And it's really important that we do that. The reason being is that if we only learn to attend to the top of the mountain, well, you're of course going to be overwhelmed with fear. That sounds and it looks like such an enormous task. And because of that, you're going to experience the sensation of fear, the emotion of fear, and it's going to sort of demotivate you. It's going to get you to avoid the things that you know that you want to do and that is good for you. Now, for those who have been avoiding fear for quite some time, it's easy to get into the habit of escaping and avoiding the things that sort of give you a bit of anxiety. Now, if you do that often enough, it's going to feel like this sense of demotivation, right? And it's an unusual way to describe that, but it really is this concept of avoidance. And so, what do we do with fear? We've got to learn how to face fear, and we've got to learn how to break down fear, and so that they're manageable chunks. Now, what's something that's really important to you and that's worthwhile, that you want to do and that you know is good for you? To start building your fear mountain, you're going to have to identify something that it's worth climbing that mountain for. What's at that top of the mountain? It has to be something that's good for you, and it has to be something that you really want to do, and it has to be something that fear is blocking you from doing. Okay? Now, for a lot of the clients that I see, and for those who are just transitioning out of young adulthood into their first jobs, or from internships to other paid professional work, the concept of submitting your resume or submitting your CV, or even applying for the job that you want to go for, that's a little bit out of your reach, but you know that it sort of speaks to some of your values and where you want to be in your life. So let's take that for an example. Okay, so we'll put that on the top of your mountain. Send your resume in. Now, you might have to now work on the next possible step. Well, what's that? Well, do you have a CV? Do you have something that's lying around that you could sort of work on as a template, or maybe as a structure? Okay. Now, what's the next step? Well, you might have a look at it, see if there's any gaps that you can start to address. All right. Now you're looking at the CV. Okay. Well, it turns out that some of your references, they're pretty outdated. Okay. Well, what's the next logical step from there? Well, it might be to find the phone number of your previous manager to get an updated reference. All right. And what's the next step from there? Well, after you find the phone number, you're going to have to work out a time in which to call that person. Okay. And what's the next step? Well, the next possible step could be, well, you might have to work on how you would ask for something like this. You might be anxious, or you might be a little, sort of reluctant to ask. Okay. And so now we look at all the steps that it takes in order to submit a CV. So the art here is, instead of looking at the very end, which is the anxiety, overwhelming, fear part, we're going to look at the next possible step. And that next possible step could be find the phone number and punch it in your phone. Okay? Do you think you can manage that level of anxiety? Well, you probably could. That's something that you could even work towards in practice if you did. So we slowly take one step at a time. And so once you find that number, and let's say you make that call, well, can you ask? Well, that's another step. Now you're closer. Okay, well, now that she's your manager, he or she sent you a new new reference. Great. Okay, well, let's incorporate that into your CV, that you've then accomplished the next step. And you work up step by step and learning to attend to the level that gives you the anxiety that you can manage and that you can take forward steps towards. So that's really key. And that is at the heart of building a fear mountain. Now the thing is, a fear mountain is so useful. We use it in performance clients, we use it in commercial settings, and we also use it in clinical settings as well. So it's so valuable for you to master this. So it's also worth talking about what are the common barriers to building a fear mountain. So the first barrier is that you're reluctant to write it down, and that will be a mistake. You need to write this down. By writing it down, you sort of open yourself up to be able to problem solve and break it down to the appropriate level in which you can then take on and pursue. So that's the first one. Okay. Now the second error that people make is that they might create steps that they can't quite overcome, and then they get sort of disheartened. And that's actually quite an insightful part about doing this exercise, because you might find that there are barriers that you didn't foresee if you only looked at the top of the mountain. But if you're looking at these intermediate steps and the next possible step, and there's a barrier there, well, that's the time and that's the right level of problem solving for you to overcome that next step. That could be, well, you don't know how to use Microsoft Word, or you don't know, how to make a LinkedIn profile. So how are you going to be able to problem solve these things is going to be really key if the top of the mountain, that ambitious goal, is so much larger. And if you're only attending to that, you won't be able to solve the small problems unless you break them down. So really at the heart of this is that climbing a mountain only takes one step at a time. And you get to define how large that step is. And when you find that that step is difficult to overcome, well, now you know the right level in which you can find support, do research, or try to figure it out so that you can accomplish one step at a time. And it's a beautiful thing, because what you find is that you're going to get better and better as you upskill to overcome each step. And then you realize that every step actually becomes slightly easier. And you might actually start to make ambitious goals yourself. And that's a wonderful thing. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed that tool. Enjoy climbing that mountain, and happy recovery. Cheers.